Welcome to the stage, actress, activist, and investor, Sophia Bush, and tech visionary and co-founder of Twitter, Medium, and Mosey, Ev Williams.
Here we go.
Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
Good morning. Wow. Hi, friends. And people are awake on the second morning after a first night at Summit. I'm very impressed. There's folks here. Hi.
Hello.
Well, good morning, everybody. I think we had a VOG introduce us, but I'm Sophia Bush. This is Ev Williams. And we're gonna, I don't know. Oh, you guys are sweet. Oh, I love you too. Should we do this every morning?
Yeah,
this is kind of great.
I love this. Thanks, guys.
We've known each other a long time.
Yes.
We've been lucky enough to know each other a long time. And we were talking backstage about the sort of phase in life we find ourselves in and what it's like to have seen the sort of before the internet and to live in this place where clearly it needs a little bit of tweaking. I'm curious for you guys in the audience, how many of you would say you feel more exhausted emotionally, socially, in any way than you did 5 years ago? Yes, okay, great. So it's not just us. Now, I think some of that overwhelm can come from the constant input from all of this, which is great, but hard to manage. And Ev, I'm really curious from your perspective, really because when I'm trying to figure out like how I feel about where technology is going, I always want to pick your brain, because you helped create the internet as we know it. So, congratulations and how dare you. What would you say from your perspective is something you saw in the early promise of social media that you think we've lost and so many of us are clearly trying to find again?
Yeah. Well, I think the early promise of social media was that it was social. And it turns out it's just media. And look, I don't think that's entirely bad. I think there was a brief moment in time, and it didn't include everybody in the world, where getting online felt like talking to your friends, and you made friends, and it was fun. It was like a party. And you could hang out every day and talk about what interested you, and it was actually social. And even though at Twitter in particular, that was the feeling at early Twitter, but we didn't really design it as a social network. We designed it as what I saw as an information network, as a way to learn and express ideas. But it was open to everybody, and I think that's the difference now. And that's what social media means now. It's not that it's actually social, like you're interacting with someone you know necessarily. Obviously, that happens less and less. But in the early days, that was fun, and that was cool. And I just think it wasn't realistic that lasted. We didn't realize it at the time, but the reason now it's just media is just the incentive structures of the businesses and really of people to where we reward attention, and that's what the media business has always done. And so as more and more attention went to these screens that we have on more than we have on our television, then the incentive to capture the attention of that screen is higher, and therefore the people who spend more time on it and who hack the system get rewarded. And if the entire world is competing for your attention, when you turn on that screen, it's entirely the same as when we used to turn on the TV and just flip channels. And therefore you get the same type of stuff as when you turn on TV and flip channels. And some of that stuff is great, by the way, but it's not hanging out with your friends.
Right.
And that's what I think we've realized. And I also think that's okay, because I don't think the mediated conversation with friends or wannabe friends was ever a very natural human way to be. And having follower counts and have or friend counts or like how many hearts you got on that comment or photo was a very artificial and warped way to interact as humans.
Yeah.
And so now I think we're getting out of that phase, like, okay, that's just media. And it has good and bad parts, like media has always had. There's atrocious things and there's amazing, human touching, educational things. But social is a whole different thing. How we interact with people, how we make friends, how we connect, express ourselves. If you're not trying to be a media star, that needs to happen in a different realm.
Right. Well, it sort of strikes me that what gets rewarded in the way you're talking about in these digital spaces is more addictive behavior. It's more antisocial behavior. We've seen this real uptick in, anxiety, depression, and isolation. Because if people are doing this all day long, they're not in spaces like this. They're not having conversations with their friends, and it's having more implications than just, the internet is a cesspool and the bots are very mean to us. It's like, it's permeating our physical world as well. And I guess I'm curious because over the last 20 years, you've built Blogger, Twitter, Medium. Now you're building Mozy, which is entirely designed around helping us gather in real spaces. And on the surface, that feels really exciting to me socially. I'd really like to see my friends more often. And societally, it feels like a bit of an antidote to these ever more radical spheres and the, us versus them insanity that really gets volumized online. So did it feel kind of like a mission, or were you just personally trying to figure out how to hang out with your friends more often? Where did the idea come? And was it like a 2 a.m. idea or a 10 a.m. idea? I always like to know.
It was a slow hunch over a period of time. It's a phrase from Stephen Johnson, talks about and where good ideas come from. It's like something that keeps nagging at you. And it's like, I have a feeling, you keep picking at that and unraveling it. And everything I've done that works has come from my own felt need. This is what I want. And I think that's the most reliable compass that I found to know what to build. And it's also the most satisfying thing. And so Mozy came from a desire to sort of connect in real life, frankly, and not being, and from a very practical need at first, like, where are my friends? And post-COVID, I had moved, so many people had moved, so many people in this audience don't even have homes. Not in a bad way, you just, I don't know, you ask people where they live, and it's like, and so just very practically, it's like, where are people? Like, if you want to hang out, and noticing Facebook actually answered that question for a while, and then people I knew, it wasn't a good gauge for where people were. So it was like, look in my contacts app, and don't have really addresses in there. Sometimes have first names and numbers, and someone cool you met somewhere, is like, who is this person? I have no context. And it's like, we need better information on the people we know if we want to reconnect, build relationships. And that was what I was prioritizing at that time. This is maybe 3 years ago that I started thinking about this. And then, of course, that was mirrored with many, many people as and also, COVID shook everything up. People want to reconnect. People, I think, are generally feeling this burnout of, I don't want to be online all the time, and even if I'm addicted. And so it's like, okay, how do we solve that problem for ourselves? And what is the bigger impacts of that? And when I started thinking about, what if you really, like I said, I didn't think of Twitter as a social network, thought of it as an information network. And it obviously had social aspects. Is that bell made more times up?
I don't know. I'm like, snacks? What's happening?
And then, but then I started thinking, what if you build a social network that is really optimized for relationships? And what would that look like? And that started to get exciting as a product and as a business, because I think you would do a ton of things differently. It wouldn't be about consuming content. It would be private. Everything would be private by default. Nothing public, no status game, just really utility that helped you. Right now, the main focus is on getting together in real life. We see other potential utilities for it if you can't get together in real life. But that started feeling like the need that was most relevant right now.
It's interesting because the itch you talk about, well, you called it a slow hunch. I think about it like when you have an idea, it's almost like an itch you can't scratch. It just keeps poking at you. And what you're talking about with Mosey, wanting to figure out a way for us to be together, I'm realizing in real time is exactly why I started my podcast. I wanted to sit down on Work in Progress and do this and have an hour-long conversation with an interesting person, because my brain felt like it was breaking living in 180 characters. I was like, it can't just be the headline. It can't just be the quick turn. How do we sit and really get to know each other, really share ideas, really learn how to meet in the middle again? And I think it's conversation. I think it's gathering. So for people who aren't early adopter nerds like you and I are, because I have a very low, I found out I have a very low Mosey number, and I was like, it feels very cool. I was also early on Path, which I still miss. Like, I love to try a new thing and see how it works. I will admit to you, which is embarrassing, that when Twitter first really hit, I was like, this is so stupid. I don't care what anyone's eating for breakfast. Turns out I do. I follow every food blogger on every social platform in the world now. But at the time, I didn't really get why you'd want to invite more in. And then what I realized is it could be a really amazing, as you said, information tool. Like, I got to go to battle for the environment after Deepwater Horizon on Twitter, and I just was posting stuff from Louisiana, and before I knew it, was on a satellite media tour doing interviews on the news, because they were like, oh, they're not telling the truth there. I was like, you think? The big oil companies not telling the truth about the spill they caused? Shocking. So it's really incredible when you can create something that allows for us to share differently. Obviously now with the paywalls and everything else, that's a different thing. So how does Mosey work for folks who aren't on it yet?
Mosey's very simple right now. There's, you connect your address book. It's encrypted. We don't share. We don't push any messages to anybody you know. But that allows us to bring in your contacts, and then you can, if they're on Mosey, you can share basically more details. I mean, there was a great idea like 25 years ago called Plaxo. Who remembers Plaxo? So Plaxo spammed everybody and grew like crazy. We don't do that. But when I heard about Plaxo, I remember thinking, oh, that's a great example of how the internet's going to change everything, because we're connected. You don't have to update your address or your phone number or where you live in my address book. I mean, I don't have to update yours. You can update that for everybody if you've shared it and you trust those people. It's like, duh, that's how things will work now. And then some of us still get postables for our Christmas cards and these different questions, and we still don't have this information. So that was the initial idea for Mosey, is a connected address book. And then one of the most useful utilities we found is just the city you're at is super useful for those you want to share it with. So now if you bring up Mosey and you're connected to people, you'll see, oh, all these people I know are in Detroit right now. That's useful to know. Or if you're, used to happen to me, I would go to New York like once a month and on my way there, every time I was like, who do I know in New York again? Who do I want to see? Who do I want to invite to dinner? And so that's how it works right now. But and there should be a card on your seat to scan the QR code for Mosey.
Yeah, so you can get on it, which feels exciting. Okay, so when you think about building all these platforms, they're all very cool, and I'm sure other technologists would want to ask you much nerdier questions about how they work. I'm curious about the philosophy behind them, because you said something a long time ago that really stuck with me. You said that amazing art can't be plotted. It's a thing you start, it's a thing that happens. How does a philosophy about art shape the way that you build tech platforms?
Well, I build everything from this feeling of, I want this to exist in the world. And it's hard sometimes to keep orienting on the internal compass versus the external one. As if you are lucky enough to build something that gets big, then it's reasonable to start focusing on what other people want, not just you. But in the early days, and for quite a while, I think the best gauge of what to build is what you want to exist in the world. And you can apply this in many ways. I applied this as an investor as well. I always had a rule that I would only invest in things that I would be happy if they succeeded, even if I didn't make money from them. And so that just rules out a lot of things, obviously, that are maybe socially negative, but even neutral things. I was like, if I want this to exist and I want this to succeed, and I think it will, then that's a gauge to whether invest or not, and ended up forming a venture capital firm, Obvious Ventures, which James Joaquin runs, who's in here, this audience, based on that philosophy. But on the product level, that applies to what problem do I want to solve? Like, what do I want? And you can test that out. It's like, does this resonate? Am I completely weird in wanting this? You want it to be a common felt need. But it also applies, what happens time and time again, I see with startups, if that sense gets you to an initial product, and then it starts to grow, and then the tendency of companies is then they turn external. Then they go, okay, what do the numbers say? What does the user research say? And those are helpful information sources, but they're also can be very distorted, just as distorted as your own sense of what to build. And I've made many mistakes in those via those sources that tell you, well, people really want this, and or the numbers are making this go up, and then you're like, wait, is that really what we're trying to do? And so, yeah.
I like that, because it reminds me of something else you said that I think is really interesting, because you talk about how you're chasing serendipity, not scale. And if all you're chasing is scale, you might not be considering impact. You might not really be ready to pivot when a pivot is called for. But if it's the serendipity you're looking for, that's going to be the thing that you pursue. Just like you're saying, if it's the thing you want to exist in the world, whether or not you profit from it, it just is a different energetic way of operating that I would imagine, sure, is a great foundation to have better success, but also to have a better quality of life. I think we know a lot of people who prioritize scale overall who are sort of monstrous. So serendipity feels right to me.
Yeah. Well, and for Mosey, we like this idea of serendipity. You're going to run into people you otherwise wouldn't. To be clear, we want to create serendipity at scale. It's not against scale.
Listen, you still have a company. You gotta do the thing.
Yeah, we're a company, but also we want as many people to experience that as possible. I think there's growth is actually a lot harder to measure than people think. I sat down with a reporter a few years ago as we were doing, she was going to do a story about Medium. And the first thing she said when she sat down is, how do you feel that Instagram is bigger than Twitter now? And my immediate response is, I don't give a shit about Instagram. Which I kind of regretted saying, that was mean, but Instagram's a great product. They've done an amazing job. It's very big. It's bigger than Twitter. At the time, though, what I saw it as a reflection of is a one-dimensional view of size. And this is the tech and tech press, especially consumer internet products at the time, and maybe still, they would say like how big they are by number of users. And it had nothing to do with the depth of engagement. It had nothing to do with the impact of their on people's lives. It had nothing to do with import. It was simply the number of people it had touched over a 30-day period or something. And
so shallow metric.
It's very shallow. It's literally one-dimensional. It's like asking how big a rectangle is by saying, well, what's the width? What's the height? But it's probably 3D. It's a cube. So I forgot your question, but so so I ended up writing about that and thinking about that a lot. And with Medium, for example, we had the exact same thing. We had our goal with Medium was really to create a place for meaningful ideas and knowledge to be shared. And we struggled a lot to measure, what was that actually? Because it's a website, it's web pages. We can measure visitors. And visitors could be sky high, but what's the depth of reading? What's the value of that reading? That's what we were always striving for, and that's part of the reason that we went for a subscription model on Medium was because we thought that was going to be.
You're about to share
Show's
something
on.
Really important.
You ready? Just aligning the business with the thing you want to create in the world, I think is very important. And obviously, it's been talked about a lot, the incentive structures of media platforms and advertising-driven platforms don't necessarily reward the same social values we may have.
Sure. Well, so when you think about those things, the fact that, you're trying to do something good, you're trying to not just focus on a shallow metric, you're trying to make people's lives better, and you have to scale it for it to work. How do you know it's working? Are there certain metrics that you would encourage other founders or other people building things to add to the list of things they're looking at? Is it, because I know you've built Mosey as it's invite only, it's ad free. Why? And would you tell other people to do that? Like, how do you sort of build your checklist of what's really important as a founder for the people you are building a thing for your audience?
I think it's a little bit business dependent. I mean, some businesses are very clear. You're making a consumer product, how much of it is selling, but probably more meaningful is how many repeat buyers are there,
right.
Things like that. And so with Mosey launched invite only. Now you're all invited, by the way. It's ad free because we don't. I think that idea of aligning the business model with what you're trying to create is super important. Also, just ads wouldn't work on Mosey because we're not trying. You can't share content. There's no reason to stay on the app for more than a minute. So it would be a crappy advertising business. So that's good. That forces us to create enough value for people that we can have some aspect of it that people pay for eventually.
Right.
And So the metrics, I think you always just have to question the superficial metric. You want to look at all the metrics, but then, what is really going on under the surface? And early on, it's again, you have to really don't overvalue the metrics. If I see teams often, like we have 100 users or 1,000 users, and they're early adopters and they're friends, and we're learning, and just like those metrics don't mean anything. And you have to use your judgment and trust yourself about how to design. Again, it's like, do I like this? Is this amazing? Like, and first of all, do you have that feeling on the team? And yeah, talk to some people. Is it amazing? Just feel it.
That can be scary for some people, I think.
Sure.
How do you feel like you've learned to trust your instincts and not get dissuaded
By
or distracted
screwing it
by the
up
math?
time and time again. And it's not that I think my instincts are always right, but I trust them more for a lot of things than saying, well, someone else wants this. And I think there's so many times previous companies where I've done the right thing or the wrong thing. I mean, Twitter early on, there were so many things where we spent, in very early days, there was like this AIM integration to Twitter, which seems irrelevant now, but it was the most important thing in the world in like 2007 that we supported the ability to post to Twitter from AOL Instant Messenger. And it was taking all our engineers' time. And it wasn't because we at the company was like, this is how Twitter should work and this should be the primary interface. But some people were liking it. So sometimes not only do you have to not ask, you have to actively ignore your most active users because you know that they do not reflect actually what you want to do. And so screwing it up in that way is part of how I learned to trust it. And Medium, another example of screwing up was overvaluing the numbers. We launched one time like this pop-up on Medium pages that skyrocketed user signups.
Oh.
Amazing, look at this user signup growth. And that was on there for a while, and then someone was like, wait, people hate this. The writers hate this pop-up showing up on their page. Like, of course they hate it. That's like, wouldn't you hate it if you were sharing your story and then this, and so just like first principles.
Right. So something that strikes me about all of this, right? Like we're talking about how you've built all these platforms, how people engage with them, how to learn to value the right thing. But when you zoom out, what Mosey's encouraging, and I think what we all want, it's the reason we get on a plane and, fly to a conference to be together, is real touch point, real connected time. You just said there's no reason to be on the app for more than a minute. You see who's in the same city you are, you figure out where you're gonna connect, and you go experience something in the real world. When you and I were catching up ahead of this day, we were talking about learning how to kind of outsmart the algorithm when you are online. Changing who you follow, changing who you interact with, building a space that when you're on a device helps you widen your purview. And that requires some essentially like management of a friend group in a digital space. And now we're talking about how to interact with our real friend groups in real spaces more. I hope this isn't too personal to share with the whole audience, but I am really curious.
I hope not either.
For you, our friend who self-identifies as pretty introverted, you're doing a lot of focus on big group hangs. And so I'm curious for you, especially post-COVID, especially post this, like, we've all been too alone with our devices. How are you exercising your social muscles? How are you taking real advantage of this thing you're building to be with people? How are you getting back into the world?
Coming to Summit. Amazing place to hang out with cool people. By the way, most of my life I identified as introvert, and now I reject the premise of introversion and extroversion. I think it's just context dependent and mood dependent, and I think we vary in terms of outgoingness or comfortableness and striking up conversations or social fluidity. But in terms of, I'm very social. People call me quiet, but that is, I want to connect with people, and so I think this idea of your social muscle is an interesting one that we've been talking about at Mosey. Is how do you encourage people? Like it takes a little effort, and one of the things we're trying to do with Mosey is just like make it that much easier. Like you still have to do something, and we want to make that easier, and that's kind of what technology does. It makes something easier that people actually want to do. If you're successful doing that, you can have a successful product, is my basic philosophy. And I do think a lot of people, not everyone, want to connect with friends more, or people. What I think is a really interesting space is the people you meet, and you're interested in, but they're not yet a good enough friend to text when you come to town. And or you're in the same town, whatever. And so that takes courage, that's risky, and could be awkward. And I'm not answering the question you asked, how do I do that? But but I'm fairly comfortable inviting. I love hosting. I love inviting people to things. So I host dinners, I have parties, I have a lot of things like that I'm happy to invite people to. If I meet them once or twice, like cool vibe. But I need to remember, and I think just having the tools to like, oh, this person is around, and then doing the outreach, or is side note, one of our investors, Jeffrey Katzenberg, who is famous for building relationships in Hollywood, as I'm sure you know, and has this entire system for, talk about social muscle. He has like a printout list of people to contact every single day, and he just calls them on the phone or texts them.
Wow. And
I think it takes a large part of his day, but it's incredibly rewarding. He builds so much value by doing that. I think it's just, a lot of that is just intent.
So do you think Mosey in a way can help jumpstart that? It can take you from intention to action in terms of
we're trying
how
to make
you
it
socialize.
easy, just a little bit easier to reach out to. There's a ping feature in Mosey, for instance, that you can say like, everyone, you can basically send a broadcast push message to the people you know who are also on Mosey, and it's not as personal. It can be like, hey, I'm in town, or hey, like Justine just sent one. It's like, this talk is happening right now. And it goes out actually as a push message. If you reply, it's just a one-to-one text. So there's, it's less expectation and less than, hey, write me back, or I'm going to text you directly. And so there's less cognitive load and social risk to sending one, but it gives an opportunity. It's a little hook. It's like, oh, you could grab onto that if you want. It's like a glance, it's like a eye contact in a sense. So it's like you don't have to act on it, but you're more likely to than like the harder to do thing. So I think there'll be more things like that we want to engineer to enable people to do the thing they really want to do.
Yeah. Well, what I hear you saying is you're just trying to make everyone's lives a little bit easier. Because similarly to you know, the number of times that I think about how lucky we are to have a community like this, and also how hard it is to figure it out. Every once in a while, someone will walk up to me and my brain is like, where? what city, what place in the world, oh God, and it takes like a minute to jumpstart. And it, I haven't seen you since before COVID, and holy shit, the last time I saw you, we weren't even in the country. Like, it's a weird, amazing life we all lead, but the details are tough. I really am curious how Jeffrey runs his people to contact every day list. I would like to know the inside baseball on that. But shifting both our relationship with technology and how it can assist us in staying in contact more kind of feels like the most important thing we can do right now. We know that it got too far, the train kind of left the station too far in one direction and we need to pull it back. Are there things you personally do now, in addition to this thing you're building to help us gather, that are enabling you to shift your relationship with technology? Like, are there other tips and tricks you've employed?
I think the most important thing we can do right now is get enough sleep and exercise and take care of ourselves, which I wasn't great at for a long time. And obviously our screens and the need to feel connected can hijack that need. And personally, I spend very little time on social media. I do enjoy some videos here and there. You guys like videos? And I try to read a lot, but it's just, I think a lot of you can compare our screens to, the grocery store. You can choose whatever you want. You can go to the junk aisle section. You can, and if you let yourself do that time after time, that is all you will want, and you will be very unhappy. And so that's never going to go away. That's going to get better, more tantalizing, more available, and some people will go that route, and I think that's bad generally for society, and maybe that shouldn't be. Maybe that should be regulated, but it's not. It's going to exist. It's going to get worse.
Yeah.
AI is going to just make it even better and tastier and more dopamine spiking, and we just have to choose like how much we want that to be a part of our lives, and that's up to each individual.
Yeah. Well, and I think that the reminder that, look, it's hard to turn off the shiny thing, sure. Our phones were literally designed off the same research they built slot machines off of. Like, they're meant to bankrupt us of our attention. But I think to be reminded that it's a choice, to be reminded that at any moment you get to recalibrate where you spend your attention and what you spend your day doing. I mean, we were backstage, and some of you know this and some don't, so forgive the ones who've heard the story, but Nia's here, my best friend who I met at a very OG summit almost 20 years ago now, which is a terrifying thing to say. Her dad called us out on having said we've been best friends for 10 years, for almost 10 years. I was like, shots fired, thank you. But we were pointing out to Ev where we used to run our salon on Library Street. We had this business here that we loved. It was a passion point for us, that came out of a problem we wanted to solve. And over the years of working on causes and showing up for the cool things people in this room work on and wanting to fix problems, we realized as we kept trying to scratch the itch, like, it's a system. Yeah, we could do this one small thing or we could do this one small project, but the reason we decided to recalibrate our attention and not try to fix 40 things and work in our own lane of finance and start our VC here was because we realized if we want to shift the thing that fixes 40 of these problems, it's about shifting where the investment's going. It's about shifting who the allocators are. It's about shifting who gets to build their solutions. And that was hard. It was kind of like quitting checking my phone a lot. It's hard for me to say, I'm so sorry I can't go to 12 charity events this month because we're going and taking 50 founder meetings, but it's been important to retrain myself And it's been the most rewarding thing. And if you want to come see our showcase at 5:30, it's on the schedule. But I think a lot about it, and when you and I have been concepting this together, I'm like, oh, I see what you're doing. It's a version of what we're doing. It's a version of what every person I catch up with lately is trying to figure out how to do. Be more invested deeply in what they're passionate about, spend more time with the people they love and their kids, and like go out to dinner with their friends more.
Yeah.
And I had a very cool experience making sure my app was updated after our last phone call. And I saw a friend who I hadn't talked to in a while talking about the dates this month that they're going to go to Paris. And they said on their post, what do you think I haven't seen? And I wound up sending this, like, essentially an itinerary to a friend, being like, these are the coolest things I've discovered there, like, you know, post-COVID, da-da-da-da. And we had this great catch-up. And I was like, I can't wait to tell Ev about this. Mosey did it for me, and
Beautiful.
it wasn't even a hang.
Love it.
And so I guess I just want to thank you. I know I'm contextualizing it with a personal story, but when you remind us to noodle and shift for better, it ripples in ways I think you might not even know. So thanks for what you're
thank you.
up
Thank
to.
you for what you do, Sophia.
We're trying, you know.
And I want to just underscore that idea of depth, has been a theme for me the last few years and it goes back to that number of users, the width versus the depth of what you're doing. And it is so hard in today's world to not be, you know, stretched so thin that everything lacks the depth that makes it really rewarding, that makes it valuable. And just going deeper, whether it's on a relationship or the product, the value proposition, rather than adding the new thing, saying, how do we make this even better?
Yeah.
Is I think the key to both satisfaction on being present and actually creating something people want.
Well, it creates something genuine too.
Yeah. And unique, because not everyone can go, like there's always a place to go deep that hasn't been done.
I love it. Thank you for the inspiration. And friends, we know that panels normally end with Q&A, but also we've been talking for 42 minutes and you've probably heard enough from us. On the subject of connection, we came up with an idea we're kind of excited about. On every seat in this room, you'll find a question card. And our thought was, instead of you guys listening to us yammer anymore, you could Q&A with each other and maybe make a new friend, come up with a new idea. They might be under your seats, but I do think they're on top? Okay, great, thank you. I was like,
Thanks,
oh God,
Justine.
what if I've said the wrong thing? But yeah, take the cards, have a chat, have a hang, maybe fall in love, who knows? No pressure, no expectation, obviously. Just like a nice little touch point. Is there anything on that subject you'd like to leave the folks with?
Just thanks. Say hi if you see me. I might look introverted, but you know.
But you're a chatty guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Thanks
Sophia.
everybody.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
your day.